And you mentioned Freddie Canute there, which is, I think it's an interesting point, because the role of agencies and contacts is very important in getting players from Mali to Europe, for example. And obviously, Freddie Canute, for anybody who doesn't know, he runs 12 Management, who represent a number of Salzburg players. Patson Daka is one. He also represents Southampton's Moussa Djenepo, and there are quite a few Malian players in that list. He is very closely aligned with sort of helping players get to Europe. And I think, in terms of the role of player agencies, from your experience, Ben, of seeing JMG players head to Europe, how important have agencies like 12 Management and figures of prestige in Malian football like Freddie Canute, how important have they been to getting these young players their starts, essentially?
I think Freddie Canute in particular is a very important figure in African, not just Malian football, but African football in general. In total, he's bought like Sékou Koïta, Moussa Djenepo, Ousmane Diakité, Yuba Diarra, and now Mamadou Sangare to Europe from Mali. But then he's also done great work elsewhere in Africa. Patson Daka is his client, Enoch Mbepu and Francisco Mbepu as well. They're both at in Austria, one at Salzburg and the other one at a top level, a top tier Austrian club. I can't quite remember the name, but yeah, they're both they're all from Zambia, and he's been a really important influence, and he's really passionate about bringing African talent to Europe. And I think he's a very important sort of figurehead as well. Like, he's to have someone of his caliber guiding these players, I think is important. I think he's won African Player of the Year in the past. He's played at the top level for decades in the Premier League and La Liga, and to have someone like him guiding their careers is important. I know he's been very influential in Patson Daka's career so far, and yeah, I think he's an excellent figure to have for any player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be familiar with Freddie Canute anyway. And there's Seydou Keita as well, who's obviously a big Malian presence. Probably one of the most famous. Having played for Barcelona as well. And to say that they are probably the only two very high profile Malian players that there have been in the history of the country's footballing sphere. To say that in future there could potentially be the Moussa Djenepo, Yves Bissouma. For example, we've seen speculation around Yves Bissouma getting a move to Arsenal. For example, I don't know how much credence there is to it, but if Bissouma played for Arsenal, that's a massive, massive status move for a player from Mali. A JMG player, of course. But just looking through sort of the list of Malian players abroad, you've got Djenepo and Bissouma in the Premier League. You have Youssouf Kone, obviously, at Elche in La Liga at the moment. Diadie Samassékou, Amadou Haidara in the Bundesliga, Almami Touré there, of course, as well. A lot, and I mean a lot of players in France, which obviously makes sense that the pathway to France is a lot easier to manage because the language is obviously the same. And clubs are more willing to take the African players traditionally in France. And then you scroll a little bit further down, and you get to see Belgium have got quite a few, but it's Austria. It really is Austria who have sort of the most outside of sort of the big European leagues. And a lot of those are at Salzburg. There's Dante at Sturm Graz, as I mentioned earlier, but Sékou Koïta, Mohamed Kamara, Ousmane Diakité, Yuba Diarra, all at Salzburg. And then at Liefering, who obviously are an offshoot of Salzburg, you've got Sangare, Guindo, Diambou, and Dorgeles. There's, I think, just as an aside, to have 8 players from the same country, a lot of them from exactly the same academy setup. that is, it's either a huge gamble or these players genuinely do have something about them. And that's a reflection of how successful the academy has been, how successful the pathway has been, how it's been established by the likes of 12 management, Freddie Kanouté, of course. And it's just, I don't know, it's a phenomenon, I think, that to have so many players from a certain country constantly making that move. So yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on, keep a lookout for.